to talk about Cosby. I just watched episode 1 yesterday. So many contradictions. So I don't know if you all are watching. I don't honestly know. This is not an endorsement. But I want to start with a quick clip here from the good folks at Comedy Hype, just to sort of set what some of the discussion of the documentary is from Black comedians, but I think also reverberates beyond just Black comedians, and I think represents these many contradictions.
Brought this up, and I think the complex thing about this story is it's not, strictly that people may feel like, oh, we don't need to have it at all, but it's also who's behind it, who's producing it, right, which is W. Kamau Bell. So I want to ask you this and start with you, Pierre. Do you think that W. Kamau Bell, especially because he's a Black stand-up comedian, do you think he's a sellout for standing behind something like this?
Well, I wouldn't use the word sellout. How about opportunist? Maybe opportunist. Are we allowed to give Bill Cosby his flowers at all? He does not deserve flowers now at all because of all he's done beforehand for the stuff he's done. He's made a mistake. He paid for it. So at the end of the day, how much time are we going to rehash this? Is it going to constantly be rehashed? Okay, after this one, do we do another documentary 4 years from now about it again? Like, at what point he served his time, his tarnished. We know what it is. How much more do we need to bring him up and talk about it with anybody? I mean, constantly, it was on our mind so much. Is this the finality? Is this what we want to see? Like, okay, after this one here, we don't need to hear about it no more. Or do we bring it up again 2 more years and 2 more years after that? I mean, how long do you beat a what do you call it? Beat a dying dog. Yeah, at the end of the day, how much do you keep beating on it? Yeah,
not a dying dog.
Vanessa, who's getting the satisfaction out of this? Who is getting the enjoyment out of it or the clarity out of it? Who is it that's getting that? They need that.
Vanessa, I want to throw that same question to you. What do you think about W. Kamau Bell? Do you think he's a sellout? Or, I think Pierre brought up a great point, an opportunist. What are your thoughts?
I wouldn't use the word sellout. Opportunist is a nice word, a better word. I think that fits if I were going to say anything. If nothing happened, he wouldn't have anything to produce. You know what I mean? So it happened. He has a right to produce things like this. You know what I'm saying? As Trey was saying, there, it's interesting. You know what I'm saying? We do have these ways that we hold people up as heroes and stuff. And I think my question more is when are we going to start realizing that people are human and they're very flawed? Even when it comes to our pastors or whomever it is, we're always so shocked when we find out some really messed up stuff, you know what I'm saying, or whatever, when it's like, take the good that you can take from somebody and leave the bad and keep it pushing. If you need to be prosecuted or whatever needs to happen, let him do that and move on. Do we need to keep doing the deep dive so we can start?
Oh, my bad. So, so I just want to play a little bit of that. And again, I think I put this in the show notes. I watch Comedy Hype all the time. I encourage people to check it out. So you heard a little bit of where their perspective is and where they continue on with this and some of the good points that I do think were made that are interesting and show some of the contradictions here. And this is where I would include my own. Pierre, as I've said, I want to be to Black radical politics what Pierre is to Black comedy. That, the welcomed and included and often, but often joked mixed brother who comes on in and contributes what he can. You know what I'm saying? But and that's sort of what the point. So they even raise the question of, Pierre raises the point that, well, I think Vanessa or someone else on the panel raises the point that Kamau Bell has a white wife and was saying, well, should he be even, why is he even making this series or fronting this series? But Pierre's point was beyond the wife part. His question is, for Kamau or anybody else, what has your contribution been to the Black community, and to what extent have you endeavored to seek out Black audiences? So when I watched when I watched episode 1, I thought it was interesting that when they show a clip of Kamau Bell performing, I thought it had to be done intentionally. Selected a picture, a still photo from an audience shot that fronted 2 Black women. almost as if the series was responding to the criticism that they knew they were going to get of Kamau Bell, that not our Kamau, but Kamau Bell, although kind of pun intended with our Kamau too, and in a certain kind of way too, funnily enough. But with Kamau Bell saying, that you don't have black audiences, you don't perform in black clubs. Like Pierre was like, I've never seen you. So I kind of feel that way, where I used to feel that way. I don't feel like I deserve it anymore, but I used to feel that way about black activism. Like, I don't see you in these meetings. I don't see you in those streets. I don't see you in these spaces. Like, and now you coming out like this, speaking on behalf of the black activist community. And then here's Kamau Bell speaking on behalf of the black comedic community. So that was one thing. The other thing, though, of course, in terms of the contradiction, is Cosby's guilty. And it's not me speculating or even my opinion. He had to admit guilt as part of what got him out of jail, oddly enough. Like, if you actually pay attention to the case, that was what was funny. Like, so even when they say he served his time, well, technically he did. Because per his agreement, he should have never gone to jail. And per that agreement, he had to admit in court that he gave women drugs for the purposes of drugging them for sex. So that was what was wild about that. To get out what many of his supporters wanted, he had to actually admit doing what he was accused of doing. And what this series shows that I didn't have the details on is that, if it's accurate, he's been doing this since like the very beginning of his career. The first, I think, documented case or claim was 1964. So, but then again, but then when the critique comes, you're doing this to attack a black man on behalf of a white media institution. I get that criticism. I do agree and feel, not maybe agree, but I feel where the frustration comes. Like, as I raised earlier, Rose McGowan's was one of the accusers of Harvey Weinstein. I don't feel like I hear about Weinstein very much anymore. Now, again, I do tend to pay more attention to black discussions or media spaces, and maybe Cosby obviously is going to, but I don't feel like I'm hearing in the news much discussion of Weinstein. And I thought he had a second trial, so I don't even a whole other set of trials to go. So I don't know. So I get that as well, but at the same time, Cosby's no hero, and for me, the critique should have been long ago one, and I don't mean it all to diminish or say one has to happen precedence over the other in terms of these accusations. But even before I'd ever heard of these accusations, I have for years been saying that Cosby should have been torn down or removed from his high horse or status for his political positions. Going back to George Jackson's critique of his position as an FBI agent on I Spy while the FBI is destroying the black movement, his standoff, relationship to the civil rights and human rights struggles, the condemnation of the black poor that sort of revived his career post the Cosby Show. Like all of that, I thought the Come On People book he did with Poussin, like all of that, I thought was, I mean, that's what I was mad at. And the one time I felt like I was on the same side as Michael Eric Dyson, which was very weird because his book critiquing Cosby, I thought, if I remember correctly, was on point and at least well timed. The machine that is Dyson. But again, if we raise the criticisms of the sisters at Georgetown about Michael Eric Dyson, is that tearing down a brother, or is that? I don't know. So I don't know. I'm going to watch the rest of the series though. I mean, it is interesting, and they go back through Cosby's career, but it's also the problem that I have is also the talking heads. You got Roland Martin on there as a talking head. You got what's my man's name? Jelani Cobb on there. You got, of course, Todd Boyd. That man has not I read his book, the HNIC book years ago. I don't know how much he's done academically or written since then. Maybe a lot of great stuff, but he's in every one of these documentaries saying exactly the same thing. So I don't know why we can't, I don't know. Are there not any other cultural critics and writers that even white folks like? I mean, damn, that dude is everything. But so like, and of course, I was trying to think of all the names. Al Sharpton is in the joint. So you got, so this is again the point. Like you can raise certain issues, but look at how they're discussed and who's discussing them. What is the critique going to ultimately be? If, oh man, oh my goodness. So anyway, I'm going to keep watching the series. I don't know if anybody else feels like it's worth their time to do that. But even as but where I've sort of felt, I don't know, in agreement with Bell's point was that, or the intro to the series is, I mean, I don't like Cosby. I haven't liked Cosby for a long time. I didn't like Cosby, even if we really get real for real. I stopped liking Cosby over the have a Coke and a smile and shut the fuck up line from Richard Pryor and over his beef with Eddie Murphy. Like that's where, as a youngster, I was like, word, that's Cosby's. So ever since then, I've been looking at Cosby kind of funny, to be perfectly, but the point also is that he has been around. I mean, I was a huge Fat Albert fan. I introduced my children to Fat Albert. We used to watch Fat Albert all the time. I still, what I mean? I still, I'm still rocking this, what I mean? He's been in, around my entire life. He gave us the name, or his movies gave us the name Biggie Smalls, that became for a certain generation of hip hop heads, it is what it, so, but at the same time, for me in this moment, he is yet another example of a lot of the contradictions we have politically, in terms of behavior, celebrity politics, media coverage, punditry, all of these and our gender politics, racial politics. I mean, anyway, I don't know.